There's a redemptive arc going on at the moment with one Mark Zuckerberg, or that's at least how some would like you to view it. I have my own suspicions about this, and I have my own criticisms of Mark Zuckerberg as a character right now. But first, before I go into that, I'm going to remind everybody that this website is not run for free, and that we are demonetized on YouTube, and we don't actually earn any revenue from this segment that you'll be watching on YouTube right now. So if you'd like to support us, you can either buy a subscription for the website that start from £5, or if you'd rather make a more specific donation, we actually have a donate button on the website that you can use to donate however much that you would like. We really appreciate all of the support that comes to the website and to us doing what we do, so thank you very much. So before I get into Mark Zuckerberg, there's been a lot of stuff going on in America at the moment that we've not actually touched on the podcast for some reason, so I thought I'd quickly round up some of the news that's been going on regarding America and then also regarding social media, because it ties back to Mark Zuckerberg and the kind of collaboration with the US government that he engaged in. So first of all, the big news is that Robert F. Kennedy has decided that he's suspending his campaign and decided to back Donald Trump. Now, this is important because Kennedy himself has stated that in about 10 battleground states where his presence was going to be a spoiler, that the polls that they were conducting showed that he was going to drastically reduce Trump's chances of winning in those states because they seem to both appeal to the same voter base. And so he's decided that he's going to step down. He said in a press conference in Phoenix, Arizona, they would seek to remove his name from the ballot in those 10 battleground states. And some of them will be the swing states that you always hear about, like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, etc., etc. Before welcoming RFK Jr. to the stage on Friday, Trump had promised, if elected, that he would release all of the remaining documents relating to the 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy. So Trump is making a lot of big promises if he wins this next one. I think when he was at the Libertarian Convention a few months ago, he also promised that he would release Ross Ulbricht from prison at the same time. So Trump's making a lot of different promises to appeal to different parts of his base, and we'll see if he gets in how many of those that he'll actually uphold.
I think he wants to appoint RFK as well, the head of kind of Truth and Reconciliation Commission over COVID, so we should get some answers for that. And I think RFK, I have criticisms of the man's climate, abortion and gun policies, but if there's one thing that he does do very well, it's corruption within the agriculture and pharmaceutical lobbying sector. And I think he will single-mindedly go after this. And I watched his press conference where he stood down, and I think he is sincere when he said he won't get the opportunity to run for president again. So if he can make good on his promise to end the chronic disease epidemic, particularly among children, via the Trump administration, he'll do it. And I think that's very good. Did you also see how he came out at this particular rally?
I have seen a few stills, but carry on.
It was with Foo Fighters, There Goes My Hero, with all the playing.
Fighters.
It was like a WWE entrance,
didn't they?
Yeah, Dave Grohl threw a hissy fit on Twitter, but it was like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man making up again. It was.
Let's put Miss Elizabeth behind us, yeah, brother. There we go. No, it's pretty cool. I would also like if he if he went ahead with it, if he gets in, because I think we're all very interested. What happened?
Well, the CIA murdered him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be nice to hear it from the horse's mouth and have the documents that absolutely say so.
I want the Nixon files.
I'd like a lot of files from the US government released. So if Donald Trump...
the aliens.
Yeah, if Donald Trump... Well, Mexico already did, and they were fake. So, you know...
I don't want the Mexican ones. I want the American one.
America already gets plenty of Mexican aliens.
I set you up there perfectly.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for that. But there's already some kind of spanners being thrown in the works with this. He won't be able to remove himself from the ballots in Michigan and Wisconsin, which are two of those battleground swing states. However, the fact that he has come out and said that he's endorsing Trump in the first place, any of his voter base who are going to be listening to him say in these states, say, don't vote for me, vote for Trump instead, I would imagine they're going to go and vote for Trump. So it's a pretty sure bet that Trump's going to get that share of the votes.
I'd expect legal challenges as well.
There are legal challenges in some of them, like in Wisconsin. That it basically just says in their statute that if you've filed nomination papers and you've qualified, you can't decline the nomination. After that, that's according to where is it? The State Election Commission. That's according to the State Election Commission. But even if they can't take his name off of the ballot, as long as Kennedy gets the message out there, and he's a he's a Kennedy. He's a charismatic guy. He has good messaging. Whether or not I agree, as you do, with some of his policies, he's clearly a charismatic guy, far more charismatic than anybody that they have on the Kamala Harris team, especially this whole astroturfed, fake, phony Tim Waltz. Isn't he such a goofy family guy? Don't you all really like him? Where he's basically doing a minstrel show. He
also yanked his special needs son on stage. That's how much of a loving father he is.
That did look dodgy. I think the important thing as well, if RFK Jr. is trying to get his message out, is that he's basically an internet candidate, which is not me knocking him, but it does mean that any way to get his message out to his base will be purely controlled by him, so he can direct the overwhelming majority of them to still vote for Trump no matter what in any of the swing states. And this also means that with RFK Jr. and are you going to mention Tulsi in here?
We can mention it now. Tulsi Gabbard's come out and endorsed him as well at the same time.
Those two candidates, former candidate for president in Tulsi's respect, are very close to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan in the last election cycle said, I will not interview Trump because I don't want to get involved. But he endorsed RFK Jr. Now, Trump is the Joe Rogan candidate.
Also, those two people, RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, both appeal to a part of the centrist voter base who feel dejected, feel left behind by the election system, by the political system in the US. So both of them putting their support behind Trump, it helps him.
That was part of when there was speculation about who Trump was going to pick as his VP. Those two names came up fairly often.
Either one of them would have made sense, and I do think it's a shame. I like JD Vance, and I think he's got some good messaging, but Carl said the other day that he thinks that RFK should have been VP, and now that he's come out with the...
It was offered, apparently.
Well, that's interesting, because now he's come out with the endorsement. I think it would have been a really good ticket if the two of them... If only because, again, whether or not he's amazing on everything, RFK is anti-deep state, anti-endocrine disruptors, anti-big pharma. So he has the right messages where it counts, and he's charismatic, and he's got political pedigree behind him.
He would have also had assassination insurance.
Well, there you go. So maybe it's good that he's endorsed him after the assassination attempt, actually.
Third time's the charm, isn't it, for Kennedy, I hope?
I suppose so. Also, I've got to say, he seems quite charming in a way that he might be legitimately a bit mental. Legitimately, there's been a bunch of stories come out of him in the news recently, which seem to be trying to discredit him and make him seem weird. You don't want to trust this guy, do you? But honestly, come across like charming to me. As an Anglo, there's a place in my heart for the weird eccentric, and Kennedy definitely comes across as one of them. So there's some weird charges coming to him now. So he's facing a call for investigation into a claim that he chainsawed a whale's head off. I assume the whale was dead when this happened, because if it was that RFK Jr. had some kind of Moby Dick situation.
It's a white whale.
It's a white whale where he needed to get revenge on it.
But he gets the white whale.
And like Ash from the Evil Dead films, went on a boat into the middle of the sea and chainsawed its head off alive.
With it attached to his arm as well.
Yeah, with it attached to his arm, sawn off shotgun in the other hand. That's awesome. That's not a reason for me to dislike the man. Come on.
I heard someone compare it on Twitter to RFK Jr. if he was in the 19th century would have amassed a massive collection of like impressive natural specimens and donated it on his deathbed to some zoological society, and we'd all be walking around the museum marveling at it now. But it's just because we've got the headlines of him throwing the corpse of a bear into his pickup truck or something. We all think he's strange.
Even that story is quite funny as well, by the way, because I was gonna mention that one. This is I will give credit to the Guardian. This is kind of a funny picture that they've had. So what this story was is that he had found a dead bear cub on the side of the road, loaded it into the back of his car, for some reason took a photo with the corpse. He later said that what he was planning on doing was taking it with him to skin and eat later, kind of like a survivalist. So you would appreciate that, Josh.
I already like him more, yeah.
But then ran out of time, so took it to a park in New York, left it in a bush, and staged it to look like a bicycle hit and run incident.
He's just creating an urban legend. Central Park bear.
When asked why he did this, he said, "We thought it would be funny." That's great.
I like this guy. Why did I not know about this? Well done, Guardian. Now I know he's a funny guy.
I mean, this is an amazing story.
A legend.
And there was another animal-related controversy, they say. In July, Vanity Fair reported that in 2023, Kennedy sent a photograph of himself with the barbecued remains of what he suggested to a friend was a dog, clearly a joke. The picture showed an animal carcass that he had apparently been cooking on a spit, so he's got the old American spirit in him, really.
Trying to win the Italian vagrant migrant vote, judging.
Yeah, I suppose so. And then he said that it was actually a goat. He was just cooking a goat and made a joke. And in response to the allegations that it was a dog, he decided to post this video of himself apologizing.
You know what I'm doing? I'm making steak and chicken for the dogs. I don't normally do this. But ever since that guy wrote the article about me saying I ate a dog, it hasn't been the same. Now I gotta work my way back into their good graces. This was my dinner. I'm giving him my food. This is the height of irresponsible journalism. I mean, I don't care what it does for me, but look at these guys. These guys don't believe in anything they hear on the news. Yeah, Daddy would never do something like that. It was a goat. Oh, St. Francis loved the animals. I love you guys. I would never eat a dog. It was fake news. It was fake news. St. Francis with a wolf of Gubia. This is one of their favorite books. It really calms them down.
Amazing.
He's got a sense of humour, yeah.
It's so charming, isn't it?
Mm.
So, I could disagree with the guy on things, but he seems like a nice person. He seems like he'd be entertaining to spend a day with, doesn't he?
Hadn't endorsed bloody reparations and massive abortion thing, he'd be cool.
That's the problem. But still, you can see that he's good to be on Trump's side.
Affable, yeah.
Yeah, he's affable. He's got charm. He's got charisma. He's got character to him, and he's got the right convictions where it comes to the American deep state, big pharma. Everything to do with the big corporate collusions. He's got all of the right positions where it really counts there. Because you can say what you want about his other positions, if they are able to do something with the combined might of their characters about the deep state, well, that is the biggest problem in America. Moving on to the next thing that's going on, Telegram is a social media platform that has been under the eye of Sauron for a very, very long time, which is run by Pavel Durov, who I believe is a former Russian citizen who was exiled or kicked out of the country for running Telegram because he refused to collaborate with the Kremlin. For a lot of the information that had been shared on the platform, in the same way that Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, other social media heads in the US were expected to and did comply with FBI requests for information and censorship, etc., etc. He's been arrested. He's been arrested in France, and the charges against him are increasing pressure on Brussels to enforce new European laws on the platform. Now, this is the Digital Services Act they are trying to get on him. As it's being said at the moment, the investigation has nothing to do with EU laws themselves, and it's more to do with specific charges that France is levelling against him. So it's done after an investigation by a Paris prosecutor into organised crime, child sex abuse images, fraud, and money laundering that was being conducted on the platform. And it says here that they want to use, it says also raises the stakes for the European Union to push the Digital Services Act on this. Coming into force in November 2022, the DSA targets online platforms too big to care, in the words of EU Commissioner Thierry Breton, putting demands on internet firms to remove illegal content, protect children, tackle disinformation, and other online harms. Now, I do think that, of course, if he is culpable in any way of allowing child sex abuse and other things to go on his platform, that's something that he should be held accountable for. I do not think that's what this is about, because it seems to me more like Telegram is a platform, as much as it does have a lot of feds on it. Other governments across Europe have all said that they basically have intelligence operatives going through Telegram, trying to spy on people, get the information, go into people's different forums and cause chaos or just collect information. It is still annoying for them that he refused to collaborate with them on anything or go ahead with their demands. So if you can convince me that the enormous alleged paedophile ring that runs Europe and the rest of the world cares about child pornography that was being shared on Telegram, when at the same time the FBI didn't seem to care at all about the same material that was being shared on Twitter before Elon Musk.
Or on Instagram and WhatsApp.
Or on Instagram or WhatsApp that's still going on right now, then I don't know. It doesn't pass the sniff test.
There's a couple of things to note here. First of all, that Telegram was set up in 2014 during the attempted revolution against Vladimir Putin at the time. I think it was in 2021 that Putin offered this chap, Durov, the ability to come back to Russia so long as he collaborated with the Russian government, and he refused. And he's now a joint citizen of both France and the United Arab Emirates. And I believe Telegram is headquartered in
Saudi Arabia.
Oh, is it Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I wonder if that nation in particular will intervene in this on his behalf, offer him refuge in some way. And I would expect that it's to do with allowing the feds to have backdoor access, because we covered this October 2022. The likes of Facebook had specific portals that only Biden administration and intelligence assets could access to report specific posts to be taken down by the executives, including like Anthony Fauci parody accounts. And I would wonder if this app has an inability for feds to access the content on it, especially in the aftermath of it being blamed for organizing. It was either the Taylor Swift terror attack in Austria or the recent German diversity stabbing for the alleged Syrian migrant. I remember Telegram being mentioned here in that ISIS uses it to collaborate with his operatives. Whether or not that's true or that's just the line that's been fed as a pretext for arresting him is a completely different matter.
I mean, there are multiple different things here. First and foremost, I would say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I think that actually I would like to see the regime post definitive proof, because I think the whole notion of holding, the head of a company accountable for what goes on their platform, the sort of content on there, unless they're being particularly lax or something. But if it's end-to-end encrypted messaging, it's kind of the point that you don't look at it. And so that's a weird thing to hold someone accountable for. And there's also the point of, well, if it wasn't that platform, it would be another one. ISIS could be organising with emails. They could
or Signal or what?
There are any number of things they could be using. But the fact that the feds do go on it, and that sort of, to my mind, shows that it is effective at keeping these sort of people out, that they have to actually infiltrate the chats, these group chats and things like that. And you see lots of screenshots of Telegram group chats and things like that as evidence in court prosecuting people. So that suggests to me that they actually have to find a way in, which is quite frustrating for the intelligence agencies that have got pretty used to and lax with their enforcement of what used to be the law.
Yes, so if you want to look at what the charges are, you can see them here, what's being put forward as the charges for Durov, including things like complicity for illegal transactions by organised crime groups. Again, as Josh just said there, the whole point of the end-to-end encrypted is that you don't look at it, so what people do on the platform is essentially their own business. Refusal to provide the authorities with information or documents necessary for criminal investigations. Dissemination of child sexual exploitation material. And of course, I would say, for me, that's the one that you should have a bit of a responsibility to try to prevent. If we're going to be critical for Twitter, other platforms for allowing that material on it, then we should be critical of this as well. But at the same time, I mean, the people who are prosecuting this are probably going to be... they're probably not going to be upset that the FBI was not doing anything about it on Twitter.
Or about Epstein.
I don't trust anybody within the security apparatus, the police network across Europe, or the governing body as a whole across the world to actually really give a damn about these things.
Well, it's always an excuse to prosecute their political enemies.
Yeah, it seems much more likely that it's politically motivated than anything else. So speaking about this gentleman, we go to Mark Zuckerberg, who has been on his redemption arc recently. Here is... No. Copyright, you're not getting us for that one. There's been videos like this going around. I don't know who Zuckerberg hired as his PR firm, but they've done a fantastic job. people have been saying, oh, well, all it is that he started going outside, exercising, and eating proper food. Yeah, you don't start eating a single steak and say, I'm going to do this and get it on camera.
That's not an easy thing to do either.
No, it's impressive. I'm not going to take anything away from the guy. He's clearly in great shape. He does jiu-jitsu. He can surf while drinking a beer and holding an American flag at the same time. He's in great, and he looks a lot healthier and a lot better than he did for a long time. And look at this. This is like a before and after rehab picture.
The SSR eyes are gone.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. He looks like he was put through some kind of, in The Fly, there's the transmogrifying machine, except a human stepped into it with him.
He lost his lizardy ways, hasn't he?
Yeah, we finally managed to separate it from him. And, it's an impressive transformation. And he's even been coming out and saying lebased things, like when he was talking about the Donald Trump assassination and the assassination photograph, where he said this.
On a personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But look, it's
Well, after the Trump assassination, he said that he called Trump and said he would be suspending all further donations to Democrats. And he and his wife were one of the influential forces in the Time magazine piece that said there was a shadowy cabal that fortified the last election. So that is pulling one very significant beam out of the cathedral which screwed Trump over last time.
Yeah, and I will say, I don't think it's a bad thing that one of the America's many California tech billionaires, like so many of the others, seems to be shifting outside of the Democrat apparatus.
Are we speculating as to why?
Would you like to?
I have two reasons. One, since last year, the House Judiciary Committee has been investigating algorithmic manipulation by Facebook. For example, lots of registered Democrats got notifications to vote in 2020, and a large share of Republicans did not. After January 6th, they combed through millions of Facebook messages to try to identify people who might have been there, and that led to people being incarcerated for very minor offences, including being led around by the Capitol by the police. So I wonder if he's seeing a changing in the political winds and wanting to get out ahead of this and get on the right side of the regime so he doesn't get prosecuted retroactively. And also, Kamala Harris is not very favourable to Israel. She's not. And Mark Zuckerberg, being ethnically Jewish, I think probably would prefer to back the government that would like to back the country where his ethnicity resides, rather than the government which is seemingly happy to lend credence to Palestinian grievances in the aftermath of October 7th, which both Biden and Harris have done.
I think that the Democrats are insatiable masters, really, aren't they? In that Facebook donated a lot of money to the Democrats, and they still went after them anyway. And normally, the way things go is you donate money to a political party and they give you favourable treatment in government, not go after your company and try and blame you for things you had nothing to do with. And so he's probably realised, well, I'm going to switch to a different group of elites then and pledge my allegiance to the Republicans, because at least they will not try and rake me over the coals constantly, even though I've paid them off in my campaign donations.
Yeah, and in that way, he's actually thrown the most recent administration under the bus a little bit in this letter that he's released to a committee of the United States House of Representatives.
This is the one that's looking into him, by the way.
Yes, exactly. So he's released this letter that's gone public, where he said, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. Remember, this is the time when they were censoring anything that was negative about the way that the vaccine was being pushed, while at the same time, James O'Keefe managed to secure footage of Mark Zuckerberg himself recommending his staff members that they don't take the vaccine. So that was a very hypocritical move of them, even with pressure coming from the government. Importantly as well, in the final paragraph of this page, it says, in a separate situation, the FBI warned us about potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead-up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then-Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden's family. We sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. So again, this is something that he's spoken about before in 2022 on Joe Rogan's podcast, about essentially being pressured and then complying with the FBI, despite the fact that we know, of course, since last year on May 26th in 2023, IRS supervisory agent Gary Shapley confirmed that the FBI had already got hold of Hunter Biden's laptop and confirmed its authenticity in November of 2019.
They knew it was authentic and they lied. The 50 or so people that publicly went out of their way to say this is Russian disinformation should be arrested. There's no two ways about it. Those people tried to interfere in the run-up to an election by suppressing a story. It's as simple as that. There's no two ways about it.
And they all signed a letter confirming, saying that, oh, this is guaranteed Russian disinformation, when presumably they were also in on it and knew that it was true from the beginning. So I absolutely agree with you there. So, you know, this isn't something new that we know from Zuckerberg. He's already spoken about this. But I will say, you know, on a personal level, good for him for getting into better shape and for cleaning himself up a little bit and seeming to adopt a more healthy and positive lifestyle. I still don't trust him on a personal level. You shouldn't either, because clearly he's a self-interested tech billionaire in California. And whether or not they're making moves in our direction or not, they are ultimately doing so for their own benefit. So please be wary. Be wary, although I am always weary.
Aren't we all?
And don't just take it at face value.
Hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast to the Lotus Eaters. And if you want to see what else we're putting out, you can go to the website and follow the series Comics Corner with Connor and Harry. And also, other than signing up, you can also donate. And if you want to see all of the other things we're putting out, you can follow us on Twitter. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.